Friends, today we are going to discuss about systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is another type of random sampling technique, but it is called a semi-random sampling technique because some part of the sampling technique is random and the other part is non-random. So subsequently, when we know about sampling technique, we will understand why it is called the semi-random sampling technique. Okay, so this is generally used when the population units they occur in a deck or in a sequence. One particular requirement of using this sampling technique is that the sample size should be the population size should be a multiple of the sample size. That means if you want a sample of size 13, then the population size should be a multiple of 13, say 65 or 78, like that. So that it is a multiple of the sample size 30. But this is not a strict requirement though, because statisticians have found out procedures of doing systematic sampling even if the population size is not a multiple of the sample size. Now here this sampling technique is very quickly we can reach to the sample from the population, and this is popular when quite gainfully used when there is no sampling frame. The earlier sampling techniques that we studied required the sampling frame to be available, but here this one you can apply even if the sampling frame is not available. Let us look into this with the help of an example. Suppose you are trying to select a sample from those people who are visiting a particular park on a particular day. So you have randomly selected a day, or may purposely select the day also. You require to collect information from people who visits a park. Generally, more visitors come in Sundays or in holidays. So we may pick up a holiday also, no harm in doing that. And then we go and stand at the gate of the park. Now people are coming and one by one they are entering into the park. Now we select a random number. So that random number we select through lottery method or some other method of selecting a random number. Suppose the random number is 4. So what we do is that we select the fourth individual. So this is the fourth individual we select, and then the next fourth one, that means this, and the next fourth one, this, and this comprises of our sample. We continue in this way so long as we don't get our required sample size. Now out of these people, someone may deny to take the survey. They may not participate in your study. So skip that individual and select another, the fourth person who was behind that person or behind the last person selected, fourth person. So that way you don't have any control over the number 4 or the random number that appeared, but the other people who are selected following that number gets automatically selected. So that's why the selection of the other people becomes automatic when you decide about the first random number. So that random number is the random component of systematic sampling, and the others who are getting selected non-random manner, that is automatically they are selected. Thus the sample that you are finding, that sample is actually semi-random, and so the systematic sampling is called as a semi-random sampling technique. Okay, let us go forward and look into now cluster sampling. The cluster sampling is used when the sampling frame is not available to us or it is very difficult to prepare, especially when you consider a particular town. Then you might find that is the town house listing is being done, but this house listing keep on changing very rapidly because some constructions are done, some families they change, they migrate from to other place, some new families come in and capture some of the homes which may be offering themselves for rent. So the socio-economic profile of the people are also changing, and this is very dynamic. So something like that is happening. And here the purpose is that we want to select a random sample obviously, but then in the population there are some segments which are non-overlapping, and each individual or a sampling unit, whichever, maybe an individual, maybe a household, that sampling unit belongs to one segment and only one segment. There is no particular sampling unit which is simultaneously available in the two particular segments. Now these segments are called as clusters. Now the clusters are generally determined from the point of geography of that place. It is not, it has some, you may feel that it is somewhat similar to stratified sampling, but it is not. In stratified sampling, the strata are framed in such a way that within the strata there is homogeneous things are coming, between the strata things are heterogeneous. Here in this case nothing like that. A very simple example to understand this: suppose you are staying in a town. Now these towns are divided into some blocks, small blocks, some where we call it a municipal ward. In towns we call a municipal ward. So there are certain municipal wards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 18 municipal wards. Now each municipal ward can be considered as a cluster. Now any family or any individual residing within the cluster remains in only one particular ward. He simultaneously cannot live in two different wards simultaneously. He shall live in only one particular ward. So the entire population that you have is divided into some segments which you call as cluster. For example, you can take for this example, they are wards. And all the people of the town must belong to some ward or the other, because the entire town is divided into wards. There is no no man's land type of thing. Every particular part of the town will belong to some ward. And so every individual or household that are belonging to those wards those who stay in the city will belong to some ward and only one ward. So that is one important criteria. Now these wards are now treated as sampling units, and we randomly draw the wards. For example, let us take this example that this is suppose a town, and these blocks that you are seeing, they are of different shapes and size, which practically happens also in a map. They are of different shapes of size. Each of them is a cluster, or each of them is a ward. Now, from these clusters, how many clusters are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 clusters. Think that 7 is my population size, out of which you draw a sample of clusters. That means we draw, say, from out of 7, we draw 3. Okay, so this is my sample. Oh, there is a little bit dispersion. It has gone outside the circle, but anyways, we assume that this is our sample. Let us go back. So this is our sample. Now you see in the sample there are different dots. These are now my sampling units, which will be actually studied. They are differently colored, indicating that they are at different levels. Like say in a survey socioeconomic profile, the blue one might be the richest, the yellow one second richest group. Like this, they vary in their vary in the assets they have or the money they have in their bank, like that. These are because of variation. They are differently colored, giving variation. Now these few, whichever clusters are selected, we survey them totally. That means out of the selected cluster, everyone is surveyed. And so, but the clusters are randomly selected. So that is called as a cluster sampling. And if you look at this, you will find that there is representation of all colored dots in my sample. That is, blue dots are also there, sky blue dots are also there, red dots are also there, yellow dots are also there, green dots are also there. So there is a selection of people from all different economic groups in the sample. So this is about cluster sampling. We take an extension of this cluster sampling, comes with the next stage, that is called as a two-stage sampling, and an extension of two-stage sampling is called as multi-stage sampling. In a two-stage sampling, what happens? The sampling units are first divided under some first stage units, and from the first stage units, selected first stage units, we draw and reach to the second stage units. For example, in the previous example, if you take the previous example, same thing we start with, that there is a town is divided into some wards, and these wards are, inside wards there are people. There are different households under inside ward. My job is to, or my sampling unit is the household. So I want to collect the information from the household, but I start from the selection of the ward. So first I randomly select some wards to the as my first stage unit. So if there are say 20 wards, out of 20 wards I select 7 wards. This ward selection of wards, here wards are my first stage sampling unit. Now from the selected wards, 7 selected wards, we select the households, and household once again in a random manner. Now household come as the second stage unit or the ultimate unit. on which we conduct the survey. But this is done not directly, but in a two-phased manner. That is from that is from the wards we select some of the wards as first stage units. From the selected wards we select the households as a second stage unit. So this is done in two stages. So the name two-stage sampling. Here we expect that it will be a better sampling technique than compared to cluster sampling technique, because in cluster sampling technique, whichever we select, these particular clusters are surveyed entirely. This might sometimes be very difficult to do, but here actually it is little bit more simplified than the cluster sampling technique. So that is two stage. We can extend it to multi-stage. Like say in a country like India, I want to say performance survey on the villages of India. Now what we do, first India is divided into some states. So we first randomly we select some states. Next, from the randomly selected states, inside each state there are some districts. So from the randomly selected states, whichever states are selected, those who are not selected in the first stage, they will not be considered. They will be left out. Now, first stage we select the states. So states are my first stage sampling units. From the selected states, not the states which are left out, but from the selected states in the first stage, we select the randomly some districts. Now districts becomes my second stage sampling unit. And then from the selected districts, we select some villages. From the selected villages, we select some households randomly. So this process has four stages. First stage sampling unit, states. Second stage sampling unit, districts. Third stage sampling unit, villages. Fourth stage sampling unit, households. So this is called as a multi-stage sampling unit. So that is every stage randomization is done, and at no stage entire things are studied, or the aggregate of all the things are studied, which happened in case of cluster sampling. Here also I have a simple animation for this. Suppose this is my first stage unit. So from the first stage unit we select some of the districts. So this is the first stage of my sampling. Okay, and now from the selected households, so from the selected first stage units, that is selected wards, we select some of the families randomly. So we select some of the so ultimately my second stage sampling is these units are my second stage sampling. So these units are my second stage sampling. Ultimate survey will take place on these units. So that is the second stage sampling unit. Lastly, we today under random sampling technique, last one that we'll study is double sampling. In double sampling, what happens that we are interested in a particular variable, say y, or say a particular group of people, maybe y. But the problem is the y is very difficult to collect the data, because y might be very remotely located, or the survey might be very expensive. In that case, what we do, first we take a small sample from y and small sample from x. X is another population which is very close to us, and data collection is not that difficult, but it has some similarity with y. Now, based on the two samples, we try to establish a relationship between relationship between y and x. Now this relationship between y and x and will then be utilized to draw inferences about y. What we will do in the next stage, since y is difficult to collect data because of its expenses or because of its remote location, we will collect a bigger sample from x, and then studying this bigger sample of x, we will try to find out that what is the level of difficulty in y, or what is the expected value of y. Now based on this, we will try to find out what is happening in y based on a big survey or large survey that is conducted in x. That means this is a secondary way of collecting information from y, but anyways, since y is very expensive or very uh, difficult to attend or reach, so that's the reason why Y can be utilized to find out the value of X. This is the process of double sampling technique. We may take two simple examples to understand this. First example is that suppose we want to perform a survey on gold, a scientific research on gold, say. But the thing is that when we perform this, the gold gets distorted. It no longer, when we perform the actions, the gold gets chemically reacted with some other metal or some other compound, and it does not remain to be gold. That means gold is spoiled after the experiment. Now, since gold is very expensive, so I cannot continue the experiment in gold because I am not able to take a large sample from gold because that will be very expensive. So what I do, I take a small sample from gold and a small sample from silver, and then find out that if these things happens like this to gold, what is the how it reacts with silver, and then I try to establish a relationship between gold and silver, so that I know if such a thing happens in silver, what is the impact the same aspect will have on gold. That relationship we establish, and then we perform a large scale survey on silver. A large scale survey, because taking a bigger sample size, will get better estimates. So we look into silver and we get better estimates of silver by using a large survey on silver, and silver is much less expensive compared to that of gold. And then we can replicate that result using the relationship, that if I would have performed the same big sample study on gold, then this is what it would have happened. That is the thing. It is how it happened. For example, suppose two populations are there. One is remotely located, where some people are there who are not so much civilized. They don't welcome you, or it may be so that everything is fine in that place, but it is difficult for you to communicate in that particular place. That place, let us call it Y. X is a place who are having people from the same community, following same religion, etc. But they are quite friendly. They know your language also. You can communicate, and it is near to your home town, so you can easily go to X place. But going to Y is difficult. You have to travel a lot. Then the village from which you want to perform collect the information, that does not have hotels, so you have to stay at someone's place, and people are also not that friendly. They will happily offer you an accommodation, and whenever you collect the survey from them, even if they give, it is difficult for you to understand what they are trying to tell, and also they are asking compensation for each information they are providing. So this is making it difficult to perform a large scale survey in Y, because large scale survey gives better estimate, that statistical theory tells. In that case, what happens? But the village X is very close to your home, and you have some friends also there. So they will do the purpose of communication, even if some people don't understand your language. Now, I do first a small survey in X, and somehow managed to conduct a small survey in Y also. Once I went, I stayed 2 days, but surveyed some people, give them some money also, compensation also. And then with the help of these two surveys, we try to establish a relationship between X and Y, with X as the independent variable, Y is the dependent variable. That means if I know the values of X's, what is happening in the village X, then we can replicate using the relation what must be happening in Y. Now we go for a large scale survey in X. So I will get better estimates of X, and using the relation we'll try to establish what might be happening in Y if the same survey is conducted in Y. So this way, may not be exact values are available, but you can reach considerably close to the estimate. So these few sampling techniques I would like to discuss in the today. Thanks for watching this video.